Hi everyone, my name's Kathy Skipper and I'm a menopause midwife. Welcome to my channel, The Alchemy of Menopause. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a fourth dimension or a fourth aspect of women's cycles through life. So you'll see if you look through the videos on my channel, I did a video on the triple goddess, which is traditionally the maiden, the mother, and the crone periods in a woman's life. Remembering that a woman doesn't have to be a mother to be in that mother period, mothering her job, mothering other relationships, etc. And something that I've been thinking about for a long time sort of was shouted at to me through a thesis that I read from Pacifica University, a woman called Andrea Slominski. And she really put into words what I'd been thinking about for a while. So that's what I want to share here. So, first of all, women going through menopause in 2025 and onwards are going to be experiencing a very different thing than in the past. So, for example, in 1900, they did studies in the US that showed that the average lifespan of a white woman in the US was 51 years, and the average lifespan of a non-white woman in the US was a meager 34 years. So when women got to menopause, they were really nearing the crone. They were becoming crone. They were at the end of their life cycle often. Yes, obviously women went on and some women lived to great ripe old age, but the masses. And this is really changed now. And that's what I want to talk about. So, women nowadays can live 20 to 30 years plus postmenopausal. So, what does that mean? How does that change the way that we live through menopause and we experience menopause? So, in my opinion, and that of Andrea, I'm going to get her name wrong. Let me get it right. Slominski. This is huge, and we need to take this into consideration when we're talking about menopause, when we're supporting women through menopause, because it changes how we live and it changes how we perceive this doorway that is perimenopause, or the hormonal changes that lead us into menopause and midlife. So I've actually seen this a lot and sensed it a lot in the work that I do with women. I've been working for 10 years now with women going through menopause. And the way that I support women and the conversations that we have really takes this into consideration. But it's thanks to this thesis that I was able to put more words to what I'm going to share with you. So when I'm working with women, we're always talking about rebirth. That's why I call myself a menopause midwife. We're not talking about becoming an old wrinkly woman and it's the end of our life. We're talking about our newborn self, our renewal, who we're becoming, what's important to us, how we're going to manifest that in our lives. And that's really the key here. So this period that we could say we're adding to the triple goddess. So there's the maiden, there's the mother, and we're going to be adding after the mother and before the crone or the wise woman, this period that Andrea Slominski calls the regency period. You could call it the empress period. You could call it the queen period. You could call it, I really like calling it the period of sovereignty. But this period is from about the age of 45 to around 70 odd. When a woman leaves this period of sovereignty or regency, she chooses, she knows when she's going into the wise woman crone period of her life, those last sections of her life. She chooses that, she senses it. So we can't say in specific terms at what age that's going to be, but it's somewhere around 45 to 70, this period that we're living through now en masse in the world. And so this is really, really important. And so we're going from the triple goddess to really a quaternity. There are 4 aspects of a woman's cycle now because we're living so much longer. And in depth psychology, in Jungian terms, the quaternity is a symbol of wholeness. Jung did a lot of work with mandalas, splitting them into 4 and using those 4 quaternities to create a wholeness, depending on the theme or the aspect that he was working with. So how does this change the way that we experience menopause? First of all, it's no longer the end. When we get to menopause, this idea of decline, of ending, of having to pull it back because, everything's going wrong and we're slipping off the side of the earth, that's no longer, it isn't an end. We have, as I said, 2 or 3 decades or more in front of us. So instead of it being an end, it is really a hugely powerful initiation or rite of passage in a woman's life into a period in her life when she's changed, there is transformation, but she has a lot of life to live. So I like to see it as perimenopause is this gestation. The moment of menopause is the rebirth. When we come back out of that liminal phase, which is the 2 to 10 years on average that it takes us to get to the stage of postmenopause, or the day of menopause is 12 months after not having a period, if we want to look at that technically. But when we rise out of this initiation or liminal phase, then we have a whole lifetime ahead of us. So the other point that I think is important to remember here is we're meant to do this. We're meant to go through a liminal stage, clear away the old, find our authentic voice, go from our hormones directing us towards sort of caring for others, being there for others, to this place of inner work so that we can find our authentic voice, so we can come into the world and use this time ahead of us in a very empowering way. And this is a step in evolution. This is the first time in the history of humanity, as we know it, that women have had this opportunity. So it's really, really important. It's vital. And so one thing I wanted to just quickly touch on is that in the same way as we moved from childhood to adolescence, we were no longer the same. We went childhood, adolescence into our adulthood, completely changed, transformed. I remember my niece, who was a plump little thing when she was a child, and then I didn't see her for a while, and I couldn't believe it was her as she had sort of developed and transformed into a woman. The change is huge. The change can be huge as well when someone goes from a young woman, single, to motherhood, running a family, running a home, running a business, whatever it is. We're moving through these stages in our life, and it's the same at perimenopause. We're going from our years of fertility, where we might have been running a family, doing our profession, whatever it is, going through hard times, challenging times, and we have this opportunity. Doesn't mean we don't have to carry that on. We shouldn't carry that on. We have an opportunity to pause, to look at what happened in our past, to heal whatever needs to be healed, to integrate what has been bothering us so we can look ahead and reassess, who am I becoming? What's important to me in the next phase of my life? How do I want to be a creative expression of my feminine self in the next part of my life? So we can see these 2 or 3 decades ahead of us as our journey to becoming the wise woman. A lot of people don't like the word crone, so I use wise woman. So the wise woman is the old lady, who is at the verge or between life and death, but who's got a lot of wisdom. So this period is, we're becoming that. We're learning who we are. We're sharing our voice. We're holding our sovereignty. We're holding the space in the world that women rightfully should have and that is needed. So we are becoming, in a way. So that becoming, we could use the term personal myth. Now, myth doesn't mean a lie or something that's not true. In depth psychology terms, myth means your soul's personal expression of self. So in a way, this period ahead of us is a beautiful opportunity to get rid of the outdated stories and to heal the past and even to heal our mother lines, because we've carried a lot of that. And at this point in evolution where we're faced with the need for something new in the future, we can do that on a personal level, get rid of our old outdated stories by healing them, integrating them, understanding them, bringing them into consciousness, and then they become this wiser part of ourself. And then we can live our personal myth. Our personal myth usually comes, it's really the gift in the wound. If we really use this time of pause during menopause to lick our wounds, to heal what we've been carrying, to really allow the time for the psyche to show us what needs to be looked at, integrated, healed, then in that we find our gift to the world. So my gift to the world is this work. It's the work of really healing the feminine so we can become our true self. And that came from my own wounding through my mother line and into my life. And by healing that, I can now sit here and share my journey with women, share my roadmap with other women. So we need to be guided by our souls and not by the mainstream, not by big pharma, not by outdated patriarchal values of what it is to be a woman. No, it's this deep feminine soul that knows what our evolution is about. It comes from the inside out, not from the outside in. So we need to make the most of this time. We need to make the most of the choices we have available to us, not to blindly follow, but to really have this time and think about, what are my choices? What am I going to do with this time I have? What is the information available to me, and how am I going to, what am I going to choose that's right for me? And lastly, something that is really, really interesting is that in the thesis I mentioned, Slaminsky states that by the year 2027, there will be 87 million US women over the age of 45. 87 million, and that's just in the US. So imagine if these 87 million women paused at perimenopause, saw these 2 or 3 decades ahead of them, listened to their soul, worked on an individual level to heal themselves and to integrate what has been bothering them and the things that they've carried from their mother line, etc., made choices of healing and empowerment, and on a collective level come together to express a new world. Think of the power in numbers. Think of the potential of 87 million women post perimenopause, or going into menopause and coming out the other end. That is enormous. What a collective voice that is. What a change women could make in the world. So I think that's where we are in evolution, and that's why this work is so, so important. What else? This work doesn't happen on its own. It's not like a magic button. I get to this age, and so now everything, all my wisdom is there, and I can just walk into it. No. In the same way as we have to be strong in childbirth to be able to have a natural birth, and through that pregnancy and childbirth we learn to be a mother, well, through the birthing of ourself, through the challenges, through the inner work, through the inner reflection, through the alone time, through the inner nurturing, through the healing of the past, we birth ourselves, and that is hard work, and that demands alone time, and that demands inner reflection, but it prepares us for being the woman we're meant to be in the next stage in our life, both for the individual, for our own lives, and for the collective. It prepares us to find our true, authentic voice. It prepares us to turn up into the world as our souls want us to. So it's very, very important. We are meant to become more whole. We are on a journey of maturation, and it's a beautiful journey. We're not mature until we get here. We're not as wise and empowered before this stage as we will be afterwards. And that's just the cycles of life. But it won't happen on its own. We have to really commit to the journey. And when we do, we find our own uniqueness. Our uniqueness that goes beyond our family, beyond our education, beyond our upbringing, beyond our communities, beyond our culture as it is, beyond the value system that's doing what it's doing in the world at the moment, beyond the patriarchal values. We find something unique and soulful in this journey. And that's the key. That's what it means to become a woman with a voice, and a woman with an authentic voice in the world. So it's a new period in women's evolution, and we're at the helm. Here we are. We're steering it. How are we going to steer it? We can't rely on the old ways. They're not working. The old values aren't working for women. They're not working for children. They're not working for different countries. They're not working for the world. They're not working for the ecology. So these old stories about women need to change, because they're the heart of that. Women are, or the feminine principle, which women embody, but is also in men, is also nature. And so this is an ecological act. It's a beautiful ecological act. So my advice is we need to listen to our souls. We need to listen to women who have forged their paths doing this. And those women who have forged their paths have, in a way, a responsibility to stand up and say, hey, there is this way. You know, I can share my roadmap, and there are parts of that that will speak to you and you can use. So lots of love. And if you enjoy my channel, please subscribe. That really helps. And I'll see you soon. Oh, and don't forget, if you go to menopausealchemy.com, you scroll down on the homepage, second but last box. I'm going to try and make it more visible. You can get the free PDF of the workbook that I wrote when I was going through my perimenopausal journey now 10 years ago. Lots of love.